A new podcast was sweeping through Abuja. Nobody knew the host's face. Nobody knew her name. The voice was distorted, mechanical, yet every word carried a weight that made listeners pause in traffic, stop in offices, and sit silently in bedrooms. The stories were raw, accounts of survival, heartbreak, betrayal, resilience. People whispered about it in coffee shops. Journalists speculated online, but no one could trace it. And yet, every week, a new episode appeared like clockwork. Behind it all was Zainab. She wasn't famous. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't even loud. She was just a woman sitting in a modest flat and was hunched over her laptop with borrowed headphones, waiting until her husband was fast asleep before she hit record. Usman, her husband, was kind. He was hardworking, but Abuja was unforgiving. For years, he had been stuck as a mid-level staff in a media firm, pitching ideas that were ignored, working late with no promotion in sight. Each month, their finances shrank. Rent reminders came more often. Zainab watched the man she loved shrink into frustration, his voice quieter at the dinner table. And that was when she started the podcast. Not for fame, not for money, but because she had stories, other people's stories, that deserved to be heard. She disguised her voice, edited late into the night, and uploaded under a fake name. She thought only a handful of strangers would ever listen. She never expected it to spread across the city like wildfire. But now, as she scrolled through social media and saw her words being quoted by strangers, she realized something. This secret she carried wasn't just hers anymore. And the closer it drew to Usman's world, the more dangerous it became. Usman sat at his office desk the next day, sipping lukewarm coffee. A conversation drifted from the next cubicle. Have you heard that anonymous podcast? Man, the last episode about that boy who trekked to Lagos chills. Usman's colleague shook his head. Bro, I swear whoever is behind that show is a genius. If our firm could sign them, it would be game over for the competition. Usman chuckled, unaware of the irony. Yeah, true. Imagine working with someone like that. He didn't know that the voice that was changing Abuja belonged to the woman who cooked his meals and kissed him goodnight. That evening, Zainab sat across from Usman at dinner. He looked tired but animated. Babe, that podcast. I can't lie. It's shaking the industry. My boss even mentioned it today. He says if we can find that creator, it might open doors. Zainab froze, her fork suspended midair. She forced a smile. That's interesting. Inside, her heart hammered. She had started this for survival, but what if it ended up being the key to Usman's breakthrough? That night, Zainab could barely sleep. The ceiling fan hummed above her, but her thoughts spun faster. She had built a wall between her two lives, yet now those walls were cracking. Usman's eyes had lit up when he spoke about the podcast. She had not seen that spark in him for months. A tiny part of her wanted to blurt it out right there. It's me, Usman. I'm the one behind the voice. But fear pressed down on her chest. What if he didn't understand? What if he felt betrayed that she kept it from him? What if his colleagues laughed at him, saying his wife outshined him in his own industry? Abuja could be unforgiving with pride. Instead, she kept quiet. After Usman drifted to sleep, she crept back into the small study corner they had set up. She slipped on her headphones, tested the distorted voice filter, and hit record. Tonight's story, she said into the mic, is about a young woman who built something in secret, not because she wanted to hide, but because sometimes the world does not allow honesty. Sometimes you must wear a mask just to be heard. She spoke slowly, weaving truth into fiction. By the time she was done, her chest felt lighter. She uploaded the file. She whispered a silent prayer, not to God, but to the unknown audience out there, that her words would not destroy her marriage. The next morning, as Usman scrolled through his phone on the balcony, he stopped. Babe, listen to this part, he called out. He played a clip from the new episode. The mechanical voice spoke about masks and secrets. Usman shook his head, impressed. This host, whoever they are, they're brilliant. Zainab stood in the kitchen doorway, forcing her face into calm neutrality. But inside, the tension twisted tighter. She was now sitting across the table from her biggest fan, and he had no idea. At Usman's office, things were shifting. His boss, Mr. Bello, a stern man with a sharp suit and sharper eyes, was obsessed with finding the mysterious podcaster. During the Monday morning meeting, Bello tapped the whiteboard with his marker. Every agency in Abuja is talking about this faceless creator. Whoever they are, they have the audience we've been chasing for years. I don't care how, but I want them. If we sign them, it will put us ahead of everyone else. The room buzzed with murmurs. Bello's gaze landed on Kabir. Usman, you're sharp with strategy. If you can get us in contact with this person, it won't just be good for the firm. It will be good for you too. Usman's pulse quickened. A chance. Finally, a chance. But he swallowed his nerves and nodded. I'll do my best, sir. On his way home that evening, Abuja felt different. The city lights along Jabi Lake flickered brighter. The traffic noise didn't sting as much. He imagined walking through the firm's doors as a senior executive, his wife looking at him with pride. At dinner, Usman leaned back in his chair and exhaled. Babe, you won't believe this. My boss wants me to track down the podcast creator. If I can land them, there might be something for me. A big break. Zainab's stomach flipped. She forced herself to sip water slowly. That's ambitious. How will you even find them? Usman chuckled, rubbing his temples. That's the problem. Nobody knows who they are. Zainab smiled faintly. Her husband was chasing her shadow, not knowing it was sitting right across from him at the table. The days that followed were a storm. Zainab's podcast grew like wildfire. Clips from her episodes trended on TikTok. Radio stations quoted her. Even the minister's daughter mentioned it at a social event, saying it spoke truths others were too afraid to. Usman became restless. He stayed late at work, pulling strings, trying to trace the mysterious voice. He checked Reddit forums, Twitter threads, even asked tech guys if they could analyze the audio for patterns. Each dead and frustrated him more. Meanwhile, Zainab juggled her double life. At night, she poured stories into a microphone, real stories from taxi drivers, market women, security guards. During the day, she listened as her husband unknowingly dissected her work, praising its depth. But soon, the pressure mounted. One evening, Usman came home with a grin she hadn't seen in months. He dropped his bag, eyes alive with energy. Babe, listen. I found something. There's a rumor the host might be a woman. That narrows it down. We're close. Zainab froze, spoon in hand. The soup on the stove began to burn, but neither of them noticed. Usman leaned closer. If I can crack this, Aisha, my life changes. Our life changes. She nodded slowly, heart racing. She wanted to help him. She wanted to scream the truth. But the thought of his pride, the thought of being the wife who secretly outshone her husband in his own industry, kept her silent. For the first time, she began to wonder, could a secret save a marriage? Or destroy it? Zainab woke up the next morning with a pit in her stomach. She had barely slept. Usman's words echoed in her head. My life changes if I find this person. She stared at him as he buttoned his shirt for work. He looked hopeful, even younger than his years, as if the chance had given him back his fire. For months, she had wished for this. For months, she had prayed for something to lift him. And now, cruelly, it was her own secret creation that dangled the possibility in front of him. When he left for work, she sat on the bed, pressing her palms together. The line between love and betrayal blurred in her chest. Was keeping this from him an act of protection or of cowardice? That night, she recorded another episode. Her voice distorted, but her words sharper than ever. Sometimes the truth we hide, she whispered into the mic, isn't because we want to deceive. It's because the world isn't ready to know it's us. And yet, the longer we hide, the heavier it becomes. When she uploaded it, she didn't expect the storm it would cause. Twitter lit up. People speculated wildly. Who was this mysterious woman? A journalist? A whistleblower? A survivor herself? The mystery only made it grow. At the office, Usman's boss slammed the clip onto the projector. Do you hear this? This is gold. Usman, I want you leading this. Don't fail me. The pressure on his shoulders grew heavier. He stayed late, missed dinners, scrolled through endless feeds trying to connect dots that didn't exist. Zainab watched him grow obsessed with her phantom self, and she realized, sooner or later, something had to give. One Friday evening, Usman returned home with tired eyes but trembling hands. He carried his phone like it was treasure. "Babe," he said, sitting down beside her, "you won't believe this. Someone messaged me anonymously. They claimed to know the podcaster. They said they might be willing to meet." Zainab's heart plummeted. Her throat tightened. "Really?" she whispered, trying to sound casual. Usman nodded quickly. "This is it, Zainab. This is the breakthrough. If I can pull this off, we'll be fine. Rent won't be a problem. Your dreams, my dreams, everything will change." That night, Zainab lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Who had messaged Usman? Was someone trying to unmask her? Or was this just another dead end? She realized she had less control over her secret than she thought. She sat up, pulled her laptop closer, and typed out a message to herself in her notes app. "You can't hide forever." The meeting was set at a quiet cafe in Maitama. Usman pacing like a man heading into battle. Zainab watched him from the doorway, her chest heavy. At the cafe, Usman waited nervously, sipping water. A woman slid into the chair across from him. A young woman. "I don't know the podcaster directly," the woman said quickly, "but I think she's a woman in Abuja. That's all I know." Usman's face fell. Zainab, sitting at home, exhaled in relief. Another close call, but Usman came home restless, throwing his jacket on the chair. "It's like chasing smoke," he muttered. "But I can't stop now. If I let this go, I lose everything." Zainab reached for his hand. "Usman, maybe it's not worth breaking yourself for." He pulled away gently, frustration etched in his face. "It is worth it. You don't understand." Her chest tightened. She understood more than he could imagine. Days turned into weeks. The podcast grew unstoppable. People begged the host to reveal herself. Anonymous fan pages popped up. Even international blogs began covering it. Usman's boss grew impatient. "I don't want excuses. I want that podcaster, Usman. Do you hear me? If you can't get them, someone else will, and you can kiss your promotion goodbye." Usman came home with clenched fists, defeated. "Zainab, I can't lose this. I can't." His voice cracked, and she saw the boyish vulnerability in him. She longed to tell him the truth, to end his suffering. That night, she recorded again, but this time her voice trembled through the distortion. What if the person you love most is chasing a version of you they don't recognize? What if the truth is sitting across from them every night, but fear has locked it away? Listeners exploded online. "This is personal," they typed. You can feel the pain in her voice. Little did they know, the pain was real. One evening, Usman broke down. He slammed his laptop shut and sat in silence, his head in his hands. "Talk to me," she whispered. "I can't do it," he said. "I'm not smart enough. I'm not lucky enough. I don't know how everyone else finds their break, but it's never me." His voice cracked, and Zainab's heart shattered. She knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. "Usman, you are enough. You always have been." But he shook his head. "Then why does it feel like I'm invisible?" Invisible. The word struck her like a bell. Because that was why she had started the podcast in the first place, to give voice to the invisible. To prove that even the unheard had power. And suddenly, she knew what she had to do. The next morning, Zainab composed an anonymous email. She sent it directly to Usman's office account. The subject line was simple: "The podcaster will work with you." Usman opened it at his desk, his hands shaking. He read the words over and over. "Yes, yes," he whispered, leaping from his chair. At home, Zainab watched the clock. She had crossed the line now, but she wasn't exposing herself yet. Instead, she offered Usman a lifeline, a bridge between his world and hers. Usman came home that evening radiant, his face glowing. "Babe, you won't believe it. They reached out. They want to work with me." He grabbed her and spun her around the room. "This is it, Zainab. This is finally it." She laughed, tears spilling down her cheeks. But in her heart, fear and relief twisted together. She had given him hope, but how long until he realized the truth? The collaboration began in secret. Zainab created a new anonymous email, sending drafts, proposals, ideas. Usman responded with enthusiasm, never once suspecting he was writing to his own wife. At the firm, his boss noticed the change. "Impressive work, Usman. Keep this up, and you're looking at a senior position." Usman smiled for the first time in months. He came home humming again, setting the table, telling Zainab about his day. She watched him, aching with pride and sorrow. He was finally getting the life he deserved, but at what cost? The irony burned in her chest. She was both the secret weapon that elevated him and the mask he could never see through. Weeks later, the firm officially announced a partnership with the anonymous podcaster. Media outlets exploded with the news. Usman was promoted. His boss clapped him on the back. "You pulled it off, Usman. Well done." At home, Usman held Zainab close, whispering, "I don't know who they are, but I owe them everything. They saved me." Zainab buried her face in his shoulder, her tears hidden. He didn't know. He might never know. But wasn't that what love was, sacrificing without needing the credit? The podcast continued, now more powerful than ever. Usman rose in the firm, confident, respected. Their life slowly shifted. Rent was paid on time. They even talked about traveling, something they hadn't done in years. But sometimes, in quiet moments, Zainab would look at Usman across the room and wonder, did she do the right thing? Would he forgive her if he ever found out? She never told him. Not then, not later. The mask stayed on, the voice stayed hidden. And yet, every time Usman smiled at her with gratitude in his eyes, she knew the truth in her heart. The truth that the podcast nobody knew was the love story nobody saw. Sometimes the most powerful acts of love are the ones done in silence. Sometimes the person you're searching for is the one sitting quietly beside you.